For my second submission to the sustainability challenge, I entered Futurama drama. And the rules to this one were really open. You could use any materials, but I was thrifting and I found these flags or wall hangings or something that just said no bad days over and over again. And I thought, yeah, sounds like a pretty good future. In all seriousness, though, I did want to approach it from the stance of what would I want to see from the fashion industry in the future? And the first one is something we've already started, but we could definitely do more, and that is size inclusivity. After that, gender nonconformity is another big one that's really important to me. And finally, zero or very little, and I'm building myself a loophole there, waste practices. Zero waste practices being the ideal. I know I can't get there with this project because the tapestries have these little hanging bits where you could, hang it on the wall. So that's some immediate waste that I'm going to lose. I did recently make this zero waste size inclusive dress, and I don't want to do the exact same thing, but the shirring is definitely useful for this sort of thin white fabric that is see-through otherwise, and for creating a huge range in sizes. So I decided to shirr the bodice, and wow, it looks so much easier when it's on super fast forward here. There I am winding my elasticized thread through the bobbin, and then just doing it over and over and over again. On the plus side, since it's writing and not an image, it doesn't distort it at all. It just sort of tightens up the words, which is what I saw with the sundress, where it just sort of made the Roman numerals smaller. But there you can totally read no bad days even more clearly. Here I am making the sleeves, and for this one, it was still early on, and I thought, I should mix it up a little bit. Like, I don't want all of the fabric to be just the straightforward flag, and I knew that the base, either a skirt or pants, was going to be. So I cut this one into strips, thinking that I would rearrange it into sort of nonsense, just shapes and colors. And because it is extremely thready and just frayed a lot, I overlocked it instead of stitched it. Then along the top of the sleeve, I made a channel where I'm going to use a drawstring later and hemmed the bottom just to kind of keep it neat. I'm also going to shirr a few lines about an inch away from the bottom. There I am. It's like 3 or 4 lines of shirring, and it creates a kind of a nice bishop sleeve look without having an actual cuff. Just sort of tightens it without making it uncomfortable for any size arm. Now I'm closing off that armhole, making sure to use a zigzag stitch over the elastic. Here's where I am so far, and honestly, this would make a very cute dress with my cute dog, but I would rather do some sneaky pants just to kind of mix things up. So I'm not actually going to use this pattern in the sense of pinning it down and cutting it out, but I'm going to use it as a guide for cutting out the crotch, really. So I'm laying down 2 pieces and I'm doing my front first, and then I'm just sort of pinning according to the outline, not really worrying about size because, again, this is a really big drop and really wide, so most people should be able to use it. And then I'm doing the same on the back. The only difference is the back is a little bit broader for your butt. Overlocking that again for the fraying, and then every YouTube video has someone tracing their finger along where you're going to stitch, so I thought I should do that too. And here I am stitching where my finger traced, front to front and then back to back as well. Now, it was at this point that I realized I had forgotten a very important element on my list for the future of fashion, and that is pockets. Honestly, I probably didn't put it on the list because it's something that we should have now and always. Everyone needs pockets. We all have stuff to carry. And as an added bonus, it helps get rid of waste for this project because I'm going to use the 4 pieces of fabric where I cut out the crotch. I probably could have used that whole space, but to be honest, there's already so much bulk here that I just really didn't want to add any more than I absolutely needed to these pants. So the way to sew pockets is to cut out 4 pieces and then sew 1 each right side together to the corners of the pants. So like 2 to the front, and then 2 to the back. And then it just sort of becomes part of the side seam. You sew them down at the top, you go all the way around the pocket bag, and some instructions will say to just pivot and keep going down the side, but again, my phone falls out if I do that, and that's not great. So I restart and go down the side from here. And now you have a pocket that looks like a Muppet mouth and won't drop your phone. After this, it will be time to sew the inseam, which is basically ankle to ankle along the inside of the pant leg. And while I'm doing that, quick note on why I am calling this gender non-conforming. It's not just because it's pants. It's because I would hope that anyone, no matter how they associate, could wear this and not necessarily feel alienated. It's kind of a silly piece, and it brings me joy whenever I look at it, and I hope it could do that for anyone. Speaking of silly and bringing joy, this is what it looked like when I tried on the pants with absolutely no waistband. And you know, when you try on these pants, you just gotta dance. It's a rule. So there it is. I decided instead of putting elastic in the waistband that I was going to use drawstrings for this. And so I put in a square of interfacing just to make it a little bit sturdier. And then I added 2 very large buttonholes, which I'm going to rip open and use that for the drawstrings. Then I'm folding it over using just the blue as kind of a marker, making sure to tuck in those pockets, but still leaving it wide enough as a casing. Now this part is actually what I've cut off of the bodice. You didn't see me do it because it was still a dress when you saw it, but take my word for it. It's almost like making bias tape. I'm just folding in all of the raw edges there, and I'm going to go straight down the line, pinning first, and then sewing it up. And so it's another way that I'm avoiding waste and also using all of the pieces before me. But honestly, if it seemed like it was taking me forever to pin and sew all of these straps, I didn't even bother filming myself sending it through. It took me forever. So at this point, I have 5 strips of No Bad Days left, and you know I have to use them all because I have pride. So for 4 of them, I sandwiched them together and I'm going to turn them into ties. I cut it into a kind of a neat little ribbon point at the end, and I'm leaving the square side open. I turn it out, I press it, and then I'm going to sandwich them between the 2 pieces of the bodice here. Although very important, and you can't tell, those are tucked in when I'm doing the side seams. See, I'm using a zigzag stitch again, just to make sure I catch all of those little elastics. And honestly, I might have even done it more than once because those elastics there are many of them. Here I am attaching the sleeves and the straps. So the sleeves I just sewed about maybe 2 to 3 inches along the armpit, and then the straps at about 4 equidistant points along the top. And the idea is that the sleeves can either hang off the shoulder and the straps just sort of keep the bodice up and nice and secure, or you can see I'm putting in a buttonhole, 2 buttonholes on the top of the sleeves. They could thread through and ensure that the sleeves themselves stay up on the shoulder. Now, this is the morning this project is due, but I have 1 strip left, so I'm definitely going to have to use it. I'm going to make a headband that I self-drafted this pattern, and I use it all the time as a scrap buster. So here you see me using some scraps to make an elastic casing. I'm turning it inside out. Then I'm going to thread it with this really stiff elastic, sew one end closed, and then thread it the rest of the way through before sewing that closed as well. Now I have these 2 little scarf points that I just sort of close and tuck and pin around before sewing that closed. And the effect is that then the back of the headband has this really nice give. It's easy to get on and off, but the front stays crisp and tied exactly as you want it. And I am done. I just barely made turn in on this one. And here is the waist, the only leftover bits. I kind of thought about making a fringe or something out of it, but to be honest, this look was very full without needing more embellishments. And speaking of the look, here is Blair modeling it again for us. It is so silly and wonderful, and she is such a good sport about wearing it. I did do one final sustainability challenge, even though I didn't turn it in, so there will be one more video for you to stay tuned for. Thanks for watching.